Hi and good evening, everyone. My name is Albert, and this is VlogsBoutNothin. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your very busy day to join me. I really appreciate that. Thanks to all the new subs and viewers. You feel me? You make everything so much more meaningful in that we stream 4 times a day. If you're not already a subscriber, please consider doing so. It helps the channel grow tremendously, and it makes this guy over here that dreams of inevitably doing nothing very happy. So for what it's worth, I really appreciate it. We're on a quest here to bring hundreds of thousands of people together to enjoy all of what nothing can provide to us, which is sometimes some really meaningful discussion. And tonight, I want to talk about why couples in particular, are having less sex than ever before. And, for those of you that are new to the channel, we talk about everything while also simultaneously maintaining the stance that it's sort of a comedic kind of a take on nothing. You feel me? Because we're just chatting away and it's all love. You feel me? Go through great lengths to talk about all of the very intricate details of my own life as well here on the channel. But tonight, let's get into the impromptu speech, okay? And even though it is an impromptu speech by definition, I did pull an article and was inspired by a video. Link in the description below to both the video, TED Talk. I think it was like a 13-minute TED Talk that I watched, which made me draw, some inspiration from, as well as an article published on American or Psychology Today, and link in the description below as well, which addresses the issue. It was published in 2022, and it goes over all of the medical arguments, as it would be from qualified people, discussing by nature and more over also virtue, how people are having less sex today than ever before. Okay, so here's the thing. The particular article that I'm referring to on Psychology on the website is one that goes into many different potential causations for the lack of intimate relationships in all of our lives. And I'll be the first person to say, as a middle aged person who has never been married and has definitely, enjoyed being single, to some extent, in that I've had the privilege of many failed relationships, but no, all of which are learning experiences, and I've definitely, as a middle aged American, millennial going through this transition from like an era of which, required a whole lot more in person stuff to an age of which everything's done basically on our cell phones, you feel me? I've noticed like how my peer group and how people just younger than me and even older are impacted by modern society. And I have a quote here for you that I pulled also from the same article, link in the description below. But the irony of modern society is that the multitude of convenience it provides for us also pulls us away from the very things that make life fulfilling, such as meaningful, intimate relationships with other people. Now, okay, that quote, quote unquote, from the article, link in the description below, is just a testament to how I think thought provoking some data can be when it comes to how beneficial it is for human development. In that, I see it all the time. Relationships shouldn't be this hard to obtain, and then, grow in terms of, as the article discusses, it could be that people are distracted. Younger people play lots of video games, thereby maybe decreasing their sexual appetite because, they are busy and or distracted doing other things. Other people think that maybe people are just being honest for the first time ever, and because we don't live in a society that has certain sexual standards, in a gender binary kind of definition. So people are more willing to admit that they don't have sexual intercourse, or moreover, that people just don't report, like, like taking care of yourself or whatever, you feel me, in terms of how that's become a modern substitute for actual contact. And the article doesn't discuss something that, I find as something which is a huge barrier for older people when it comes to their sexual appetite, and again, the article addresses a lot of these concerns in that a lot of old people can't have sex because of health concerns or just for the sheer lack of desire to no longer have sex. And, it's important to establish, obviously, that we're talking about intimate relationships, sexual relationships. You feel me? Not just kind of like the platonic stuff or whatever. And I think that it's important because my experience dating older women also has led me to believe that, like, people also suffer from chronic lifelong addictions that ultimately impact their sexual decisions, whether it's a drug problem, whether it's a drinking problem. A lot of the older women that I've dated, fall within this category, well within it, in terms of I see that older women, in my perspective from dating, in again, my very, very isolated perspective, you feel me, is that, like, a lot, in my experience, again, they just lack the desire, for intimate relationships. And moreover, you think about these things like as a traditional millennial about like your parents and stuff. You feel me? Like boomers and Gen Xers who are like just, not getting the kind of love, you feel me, physically, that everyone was so adamant about, like during the hippie era and during disco and during the 80s and even the 90s. There was always an emphasis on having a healthy sex life. And while one might argue that it was overly sexualized in that the culture was super pervasive in its, implementation of sexual ideologies and so forth, and so forth, I'd say that I would take that more over than I would, young people not having the experience of having intimate relationships. One would argue many different intimate relationships to build upon a solid foundation of which that leads them to ultimately what kind of a relationship they're looking for. Human touch is a big part of our development. And moreover, I think that we're confused. We live in a digital age where relationships are defined by literal give and take. And, I find that bothersome on so many different levels in terms of it shouldn't always be give and take in relationships, you feel me? Especially when they're diluted in the kind of facade that one person may or may not be exhibiting in terms of leading somebody on or just pretending that you like them, you feel me, to get something. Like, these are what our relationships are currently, defined as. And I think that that's terrible because lots of both men and women seeking to be in intimate relationships with other men or women, you feel me, often fall short because one person isn't like about that or whatever, but wants all of the things that come along with being in a physical and intimate relationship. And it's weird how I say that, and it almost sounds hypocritical. I understand that, in that, in a relationship it shouldn't be give and take, except when it comes to touching one another and having physical contact. That's exactly what a relationship is, not in its, other less intrinsic practices in sort of like, materialization of stuff and or things, but moreover like the actual development of a healthy relationship with, the cool part of being physical and sexual with one another on a regular basis. Regular sexual activity is essential for, for our development to proceed in the best way that it can. And, on the channel before, we've advocated for obviously safe sex, right? I mean, this is again a conversation we're going to get into in the next one of the videos, actually, in terms of age and so forth, as it concerns some of this stuff. And it's just like ideologies or whatever, but like, so for example, we're going to talk about how lots of advocates for age gate want people to only be, you have to be 16 before you get on a social media account or whatever. And like, I think that, we'll go through that more in the next video. I think that's not the way to go about it. But I think, people should be having more sex. And again, I think it's harmful in that we all might get the cool stuff from modern convenience and that we can physically, spend time with ourselves or whatever. It's just, it's not the same. You know what I mean? And for us to expect anything other than it not being the same would be false, in that intimate physical relationships are hard to come by. They're hard to maintain. This is the definition of a relationship in terms of a real working, meaningful relationship, and that people aren't always going to agree, and interpersonal things and beliefs and all of these things. But the moment you lose your physical connection with your partner is also, I'd argue, like probably the biggest moment in the determining factor of whether or not you're going to remain faithful to your partner, whether like sexually, emotionally, all of these things that again lead to ultimately the end of lots of relationships, the high rate of divorces, a high rate of divorce and all throughout the country, and as well as younger people not even wanting to have kids, not wanting to have sex, or not wanting to get married. Again, these are all things that by every traditional societal standard we should be promoting, we should be encouraging, because it helps promote, the growth of the country, in that our future can build from what we've learned and, aggregate all of our knowledge and make something better of the world. But instead, we're choosing to isolate ourselves and again, not get married, not be sexual, or not want to even try to engage in intimate relationships with one another for any other reason, I'd argue, except for just like us wanting an immediate sort of instant gratification instead of sleeping with your partner, waking up next to them on the daily, and actually getting through life together. You feel me? Like in a consenting way on both y'all's behalf, but in a way that again reinforces your emotional need and requirement to be touched, to be loved, to be embraced. Again, this coming from a single dude, you feel me? That's the best part of being in a relationship. And as you get older and you go through your different physical, intimate relationships that you've had with other people throughout your life, you begin to learn and understand what you want, right? Other than sex. What else do you want, right? Because it was pretty commonly understood in just like 20 years ago that relationships, people want sex. I mean, that's it, and we shouldn't have to like make that kind of, sort of this exchange where like it's just about the end result. Moreover, again, like just it's got to be more thoughtful. It has to be more intimate, and in order to do that, we definitely can't be distracted. We definitely need to spend time working on actual intimate relationships, not, friend zone relationships, not unequal relationships, in any kind of a way you can imagine that, whether that's platonic or physical or professional. It's just entirely unfair when one person's putting in more work than the other in any sort of situation ever, right? Because equal teamwork equals better results. There's many more people invested in the results of the outcome of the results, then like, you feel me, things change a little bit. And so I think that again, more people should be having sex, whether or not it's at a consenting adult lawful age here in the United States of America, past the age of 18, right on all the way good on to like the age of where like you can't even stand. I mean, I can't imagine being old and like still not wanting to have sex. Like, I mean, again, the ultimate goal, I thought, like as a millennial, in terms of being a member of a functioning society, trying to be a good civic engaged dude, you feel me, was to again ultimately get married, have a wife, continue to grow a family, teach them about, good old American values and so forth, and all of these things, and try to make decent individuals, from, their circumstance and or the environment that I'm able to provide or whatever. You feel me? Like, so I'm not sure where that got lost and where that became political, because I feel like that's just a human being thing. I feel like for us to say that we don't want these things is just to be like quintessentially rebellious in our own human sort of nature. But by common core component and requirement, I'd say that we all sort of not only desire these things but like want them, and sometimes we're not able to get them, so we completely just give up on everything, you feel me? And again, it's easier to do that because of the kind of convenient society we live in. Whether or not it's the right thing to do, I guess history can only will dictate, you feel me? But I just think that it's bad for people not to be having sex with each other on the kind of level that people used to, whether or not you're married or you're a swinger, or you're taking care of yourself jointly. Yeah. Because that was also mentioned in the study too, or whatever. But again, whatever it is, just know that I appreciate you watching my channel, and I thank you for your time. I hope you have a lovely evening. Don't forget that, we're trying to get the channel to grow here. So if you have a couple of seconds and you liked what you heard, definitely hit the subscribe, you feel me? And I hope that you guys have a really good night, okay? Bye.